Now we're going to speak about the 6-part conversation and how it can make a gigantic difference in your life. I discovered this after decades, truly decades, of looking for a way to create a deeply peaceful, cooperative, intimate, loving relationship with friends and people that I cared about. A way to really be heard. A way to have people really hear me as well. And I studied so many different modalities. And ultimately, I realized that the first step, of course, was that I had to learn to calm myself down before I even attempted to communicate with anybody else. I mean, there truly wasn't even any point to it. So the very first part of the 6-part conversation, and in a moment you'll see the chart that I created. It's a 6-part conversation, and it begins with self-empathy. And in self-empathy, we are going to be calming ourselves down by noticing what we're feeling, noticing what we need, and being absolutely sure that we don't try to speak until we're calm. Because I could help you create the most brilliant verbiage in the world that would be so ideal for your situation, so ideal for your relationship. But if you're not calm, then the tone of your voice isn't going to be there. The energy you have isn't going to be there. You're going to be in a state that is certainly not a match for the solution you're looking to create. Does that make sense? So when you think about self-empathy, again, you look for what you're feeling and needing. Feeling frightened, feeling angry, feeling sad are the 3 most common emotions that humans have that don't allow us to get our needs met. You can't motivate, inspire anybody when you're frightened or when you're angry or when you're sad, can you? And you've probably seen what happens when people try to motivate you when they're in that state. You want to head for the hills as fast as you can. I know I certainly do. So the trick is to practice self-empathy, and I'm going to give a quick demonstration. So let's just imagine that, and it could be similar to the role plays that you'll see, or it could be different, but let's imagine that I'm, preparing for this video training. So I'm feeling excited and happy and thrilled and all that, but let's face it, if you're going to do a 4-hour video training, probably anyone's going to feel a little anxious because I want to be sure that I contribute to you. And then you would take a deep yogic breath. Or you might have a situation with a family member. You might feel worried because you need cooperation. You might feel confused if you have a situation with your boss because you need information to do a good job. And notice that each of these feelings and needs, I identify what I'm feeling. That's a negative word. Frightened, angry, sad. Then I identify the need. It's always a positive word. I have a need for understanding. I have a need for physical well-being. I have a need for financial security. I have a need for whatever it is, it's a positive word. And then I end with a deep yogic breath. And the breathing is very important. It's essential. It allows you to connect into your soul, into your heart, and into your body. When you do that, then you can be in your heart space. Then you can connect from yourself to that other person. Honestly, you can't until you've brought yourself to peace. And self-empathy is a practice that you want to develop, you want to get to be good at it, you want to prepare by making lists of your feelings and needs, and there's a whole vocabulary. It's very, very important that you understand that the 6-part conversation is actually based on a vocabulary that's new for most of us. Most of us don't have those words ready at hand. So it's crucial, and of course, contact me. I'll be thrilled to send you pages and pages of this. I'll send you feelings words and needs words, and you'll be able to understand. I'll send you a sheet that will allow you to create a self-empathy practice, an empathy practice, etc. Okay, so let's talk about the second part, which is empathy. Now that's empathy for the other person. When you have empathy for the other person, they're going to be interested in listening. And when you take a look at this chart and you look at part 2, empathy, and you'll see this is really about them. It's 100% about them. Now, it's the same feelings and needs vocabulary. So I've calmed myself down. I'm present. Now I'm ready to connect to you. So, Bob, I imagine that you may be feeling really irritated because you expected me to call at 3 o'clock and it's 3:30, and it's important to you that you get the respect you deserve. Is that right? Or another example, another scenario. Jane, I can really hear that you're so disappointed because you thought you were going to get that promotion. And then when they announced today that there are no promotions until after the new year, I imagine that you felt really surprised because they had told you that you were in line for the promotion. Is that right? And Jane would probably nod yes, or she might have a lot more to say about it. Another example, something completely different. You're speaking to a small child. You're speaking to a child about homework, let's say. So, oh gosh, Ronnie, I know that you really wanted to go to the movies today, and then your teacher gave you this homework, and you must be feeling so disappointed because you really wanted to see that movie today. Right, honey? And so again, a very simple example of what is that person's feeling, what is that person's need. Now, you don't have to guess correctly. The beauty of this, you don't have to guess correctly. You are simply guessing what someone might be feeling and needing, and the key here is they will let you know if you haven't guessed right. A child, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old child is perfectly willing and able to say no, or you promised, or anything like that. It doesn't mean that you've got one round of empathy and you're done. Just as when you've started with self-empathy, it may take you 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to calm yourself down. There isn't any way of knowing how long it's going to take you to calm yourself down, just as there isn't any way of knowing how long it's going to take you to calm somebody else down, right? Okay, now, there are many memes that I've developed, and in this training you'll see them. There are a lot of different images with words that I've created, and the purpose of these is to inspire you to see why you want to learn the 6-part conversation in the first place. So here's one example, and as you read it, you see that the purpose of this is to create more love, more intimacy, more joy, more cooperation. And as you master the 6-part conversation, that's what you do. You're inspiring other people to create solutions with you. And again, the only way that you're going to be able to inspire anybody at all is if you calm yourself down before speaking and you calm the other person down. So what I use as a description of love is a little bit different from other people's. My description of love is that when you consider your partner's needs getting met as equally important as your own needs being met, that's love. And you see this, particularly you see this with people who have pets. There are some people who have pets because they love how the pet contributes to their life. And then you see people who have pets who love how they can contribute to the pet's life. And it's really interesting because it's the difference between the part of the brain that's most active in you, the pet owner. The pet's no different. Pets don't have a different perspective. So as you consider your needs, and as you consider the needs of the other person in the conversation with you, you want to really notice, what are they feeling, what are they needing, what are you feeling, and what are you needing? Now, in part 3, in self-expression, you have a very huge opportunity. You have a huge opportunity to be heard. But I promise that you will not be heard unless you have heard the other person first. And the number one challenge that clients have and students have with the 6-part conversation is the natural desire we have to be heard. So a lot of you are going to want to put part 3, self-expression, first. It takes practice. And you can use the 6-part conversation in written communication as well. We call it the 3-part because you don't have all the parts in there in an email or in a text. But the key is you're going to want to shoot from the hip. You're going to want to let them know what you're feeling and thinking and needing and all that. And I just want you to be very clear that it doesn't work. If it worked to express your feelings and your needs first, that's the way I would have started the 6-part conversation. And after 15 years and tens of thousands of examples, it really doesn't work. If you want peace, if you want to motivate someone, if you want to inspire somebody, if you want to generate cooperation. So let's take a look at part 3 right now. Part 3 is self-expression. And self-expression is all about you, finally, right? So in self-expression, you're looking at what you're feeling and needing. It's not very different from the vocabulary that you considered when you did self-empathy. The only difference is that when I'm calming myself down before I talk to someone and I've got my eyes closed or it's just me and me, I may use vocabulary that's a little bit esoteric, a little bit unusual, something that only I would understand. When I'm speaking to a group or when I'm speaking to somebody else or when I'm speaking to you and I need you to cooperate and it's really important, I've got to select vocabulary that you're going to pay attention to. I've got to make sure I'm speaking to you in a way that works for you. So it's very interesting as you think about whole brain thinking. You think about some people are more this and less that. Some people are more rational, some people are more visionary, some people are more organized, and some people are more emotional. Some people are young, some people are middle-aged, some people are old. Some people are men, some people are women. So as you factor in all those different aspects, your tone of voice adjusts, your vocabulary adjusts, and everything about your delivery in part 3, self-expression, changes. Now listen, I know that you're just learning this for the first time. Maybe you've never even heard of it before today. So I'm not expecting that from the very first minute you learn this, that you're going to be Laurence Olivier, or Meryl Streep with every single permutation of delivery. Of course you won't. But please understand that the way that Bill Clinton is able to be an orator who everyone listens to and everyone is fascinated by, whether they agree with his politics or not, it's because of his ability to connect. And he connects because he truly cares about people, and he has a very strong ability to understand which audience appreciates which kind of format. Now, when I'm speaking to someone who's, let's say, a peer, right? So I'm just going to use a normal tone of voice. I know, Linda, that you're really excited to be on my show and that we've talked about the topic that we're going to do. And as soon as possible, I'm going to schedule you, and just let me know what the dates are that you have available so we can make it happen, okay? And, perfectly normal, nothing complicated. I'm not trying to bend her, backwards over any kind of situation that's awkward. And probably this fictitious Linda will give me her dates and times to be on my show. All right. But what if it's something complicated? What if you have a child and you've got to motivate the child to go to the doctor and get a vaccination, which I don't think, is there a child that wants to do that? I doubt it. So you've got to motivate, right? So everything that you said in part 2, empathy, was all about the child and motivating and inspiring the child. Now you've got to indicate that you've got something to say too. There's a bridge from part 1 to part 2, which is you just start talking to them. There's a bridge from part 2 to part 3, which is where I say, would you be willing to hear my thoughts about it? Now, you're not going to say that to a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old. You're going to be a lot more normal. But you still have to say something like, Johnny, thank you so much for letting me know that you understand that you've got to get your shots this week and that you're willing to go to the doctor. I so appreciate it. And we're going to find something fun to do for you as soon as we are finished at the doctor's. I know that you really wanted to see that movie last weekend, and you really were excited about it. So I'll tell you what, we'll go right from the doctor's office, we'll go right to the movies. How does that sound? So that's kind of a combination of 3, 4, 5, and 6, because it's a simple thing in the sense that it's not a complicated business negotiation. And I do want you to know that in about 90% of the conversations you're going to have, you're not even going to need much self-empathy because it's not an upsetting scenario. You'll need to start with them, talking about them, that's part 2. You'll then need to bridge it to self-expression. You'll say what you need to say, and then you will create a solution. Most conversations with most people are pretty easygoing. And if they're not, you might think about creating some different people in your life, right? Because you certainly don't want to become an expert at creating peace out of drama and creating peace out of turmoil and creating, peace out of, horrendous situations if the alternative is get new friends, get a better boss, get a different neighbor, right? Because sometimes you just want to fix the problem and get it fixed once and for all. That's the life coach in me talking, right? So back to the 6th part, which will allow you to create peace with anybody about anything. And as you look at some of the memes that we'll be showing throughout my description, you'll be able to understand that it's always about peace. It's always about love. It's always about cooperation. And I'll be continuing to speak to you while these memes show on the screen. And then the next step is going to be part 4, reflection. So in reflection, it's all about making sure that the person is actually listening. Because we can have a lot of conversations with a lot of people, and haven't you had scenarios where they were just somewhere else? They weren't paying the slightest bit of attention. Maybe they weren't paying attention because you hadn't empathized and they were upset. Maybe you hadn't connected to them long enough and they were still upset. You were in the process of calming them down, but you hadn't gone far enough with it. Maybe the problem was that they simply didn't understand. How many people have had employees or household help and they assumed that the person understood them? I live in Santa Barbara, and in Santa Barbara and Los Angeles, where I used to live, there are a lot of people that you may hire for whom English is a second language, and you can't make the assumption my English is great because that's the language I've been speaking since I was born. And I speak a number of other languages to some degree, but please don't assume that I'm fluent, because I'm not. So you want to be sure that the person listening really can get every word you're saying, and that you're selecting the words that make the best and clearest description. So reflection, after you've said, may I tell you my thoughts about it, which is how you get into part 3, then you express yourself and express yourself and express yourself. And then the bridge from 3 to 4 is, would you be willing to tell me what you heard me say so I know if I was able to be clear? Now, this is only for very serious situations like a business deal, a contract negotiation. For example, I have a meeting next week with a very dear friend who used to be a client, and he's meeting with me because he wants me to make a presentation to the groups that he teaches. And this is a very large organization that he's developed, and so these are a lot of different groups that I'd be speaking to. So we're very old friends, but that doesn't mean that I can assume that I know what he's asking for, assume that I understand what he's offering, or in fact that he can assume anything about me. Now luckily, he's a student of Heartspace, he's a student of the 6-part conversation, he's a student of whole brain thinking, so he's going to be on the same page with me, but you can't get that for most people, you can't assume it, right? So when I meet with him, it's going to be very easy. He's going to be saying to me, would you be willing to hear my thoughts about it? And I'm going to say, sure. Then I'll say to him, okay, well, would you be willing to hear a couple of other ideas I've got? He'll say, sure. Then one of us will say, okay, let's make sure we've really understood each other. And then we will go into the 4th part, reflection. Now, what if the words I get back from him are not exactly what I said to him in the first place? So what if I've gone into a description and he's doing reflection, and reflection is where you're asking somebody to tell you what they heard you say so you know if you were able to be clear and something's missing. Well, that's fine, because that's why I created part 5 for you. Because how many people have an eidetic memory and they hear every word and remember it? Well, I've only met one in my life. So most of us, no matter how hard we're trying to really hear you, we want to hear you, we want to remember what you're saying, we just can't. And I mean, we could be talking about someone who's 15 or 20 years old too. It's interesting to me that when I work with very young children, the youngest child I've worked with was 4, he remembered everything I said to him. I was stunned. His sister, when I first met her, she was 6. Now she's a number of years older. She has always been able to remember everything I've said. I'm currently also working with a 9-year-old, and she also remembers everything that I've said. And boy, a young brain is a beautiful thing, and I don't expect it from any of the rest of you. And so then I would clarify. So let's say I'm speaking to this gentleman and we're working out an arrangement, and now I would say, I can see, John, that I wasn't clear enough. What I also wanted you to know was bump, 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 bump. That's clarification. Or he might say to me, Susan, there's this other part of it that I really can see I wasn't clear enough about. And then he'll go, bump, 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 bump. And again, you're not 100% sure in clarification that the person has heard every word of it, are you? Because, you're not going to beat them up about it. You're just, in a very gentle way, motivating and inspiring them to let you know if they've heard you, let you know what they've heard. And then you get your second shot at it, right? Clarification is your second chance at self-expression. And it's your best chance to be heard, because when somebody hears something the second time, they're more likely to hear you and really retain it, right? Now, as you move to part 6, solution, it will become crystal clear if somebody didn't understand or hear you. Because solution is through an offer or a request, a solution is found. So this gentleman that I'm meeting next week might say to me, okay, Susan, so what I need you to do is I need you to create some bullet points that I can use in a presentation to these schools. Exactly what you've just said you're willing to do, if you could just jot that down, and I saw you taking notes anyway, so that would be really, really helpful. Great, I can do that. How many pages of bullet points would you like? Would be my counter proposal, right? Or I might say to him, this is really exciting, this is really fun, how are we going to make it happen really quickly? What do you see as something that I could do to help? So now I'm offering, right? What can I do to help? And believe me, in solutions, what can I do to help is everybody's favorite sentence, isn't it? Have you ever had friends who said that to you? How can I help? And you'll see this in the role plays. In both of the role play examples, I was saying to Lisa, what can I do to help? How can I fix this? How can I help you solve this? What would make a difference? Or with Mary Beth, how can we transform this? How can we turn this around? How can we get you the outcome you're looking for? Because that's what people want. We have the desire to make life better for ourselves. We have a desire to contribute to other people. They have a desire to make life better for themselves. They have a desire to contribute to us. And they have a desire to have us contribute to them. So it's all three layers: ourself, contributing, and receiving. That's the ultimate relationship. And as we look at these different memes, you can see that they're all about cooperation, motivation. Each and every one of them is about creating more peace, more love, more joy. And sometimes it's a leap of faith. Sometimes having a relationship is just about you committing yourself to generating as many six-part conversations with them as you can. And so as you look at solution, when you look at solution, what is the key to a solution? What is the key to a solution? It's about making sure that the strategies really work. That you've got strategies that are not imaginary. Like, we've heard so many people who'd like to be life coaches, but they don't have life experience and success. They don't have success in personal situations, professional situations, health situations. So there's no solution. You're not going to be satisfied. You want a solution, and every single problem has a series of solutions. Whether you're looking at it from a practical, logical, analytical, upper left, blue quadrant way, thinking about the Herman map again, whether you're thinking about a solution in terms of what's going to work best for me and him, or what's going to work best for him because he's my boss, and let's make sure it also works for me, because it's got to be mutuality. Now, I'm going to also have the crew show you the different sheets for each part of the six-part conversation. You just saw the last one, you just saw solution. Now, very briefly, I want you to take a look at the self-empathy sheet, and then you'll see me for a moment, then you'll see the next one, and me, and the next one. I want you to really take a look at these sheets. So here we have self-empathy. Now, with self-empathy, you've got to understand it's a feeling. When I think about this, I feel blank because I have a need for blank. Breathe. And I feel blank because I have a need for blank. Breathe. Let me give you an example. I feel angry because I have a need for respect. I feel furious because I have a need for consideration. I feel confused because I have a need to understand what just went on. And if you're practicing this and you want to get really good at this, you need to do this in writing, either on your iPad or on your laptop or on the old-fashioned way, a notebook and a pen. And the beauty of a notebook and a pen is that you can carry it around, do it in bed before you go to sleep, do it in bed when you wake up, and just jot it down without thinking too much. Just boom, what am I feeling? And then maybe a little bit later, what was that need of mine that wasn't met? It's really important to understand it. Okay, now let's take a look at the next sheet, which is empathy. The big sheet which shows you empathy. So I'm guessing that you focus on them, you're going to be able to guess what they're needing. What are they feeling? What are they needing? And again, you want to create this in a list. I suggest that if you've got 6 or 7 people in your life who you're very much involved with, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your children, your best friend, your neighbor, your boss, your coworker, that you create a sheet for each of them. What is Bob feeling and needing? And this is my imaginary partner, Bob. What is he feeling and needing? Well, you know, he just got something wonderful happened with his sister, so he's thrilled because he feels so proud of his sister. And he's really excited because she's moving into a new home with her family. And he's feeling really sad because the new home is further away from where we live. And as you put yourself into Bob's head, you're not thinking about your own feelings and needs. You're not thinking, well, maybe you're relieved because you don't like your sister-in-law that much, and if she's moving further away, you know, it's a big relief for you. You're thinking about Bob because Bob is the person you're going to be speaking to, right? So now, what about self-expression in that scenario? Let's take a look at the sheet that just has self-expression on it. Now, with self-expression, you're talking to Bob about his feelings about his sister's move. Bob, I know you're feeling torn because on the one hand, you're really excited that Shari is moving into that gorgeous new house, that they're doing so well, that each of the children is going to have their own room, that they even have a pool, and when we visit, we'll be able to go swimming. It will be fantastic. So I know you're really excited about all that. But I know that it's really disappointing because now we've got to think about when we travel to see them, it's got to be a special time, and it's got to be a flight, and it's got to be expenditures, and it's just very different from just jumping in the car and driving an hour. So have I understood? Is that right? And now let me talk about my thoughts about it, if that's okay with you. You know, to me, she isn't my sister. She's my sister-in-law. So I am just frankly so relieved. I'm just really relieved because I know that Shari and her husband were really struggling for a while. Now they've got a beautiful home, and the mortgage is fabulous. The deal they got is wonderful. And so this is just a dream come true. And I promise that I will do everything I can to allocate time for us to visit them. So how does that sound? So that, again, that's a little bit of a role play, just me. You know, you got the idea of what the other person might say, but I want you to be able to see how this goes. I'm calm. I don't need self-empathy. He's not that upset, so I just gave him a little bit of empathy. And it's not a big deal for me, so I don't have much self-expression. This is not like a tremendous, difficult scenario. But let's do another one now, okay? So, you know, I'm a divorce mediator, so I see and hear a lot of situations with very, very difficult marriages and difficult co-parenting arrangements, and you can guess that I'm always making sure that my clients are learning these skills as much as they're willing so that they can create more peace. Now let's say that I'm talking to my husband and I'm using these skills and we have a miserable situation about co-parenting. We're separated, we're not yet divorced, we don't have an arrangement in place. So I have learned these skills so I can motivate and inspire him to cooperate in such a way that our children are going to have the easiest time of this. You know, obviously the children and the pets are the ones who always suffer in a divorce because the parents are the ones who tragically want this, so they have some choice in the matter. So if I imagine that I'm speaking to my partner and I'm calming myself down before I even start, I'm feeling worried, I need cooperation. I'm feeling really anxious because I need to know that the children are safe. I'm feeling so sad because I need ease in these conversations with my husband. I mean, after all, we've been married for 25 years. It should be easy. And I would go on longer, but ultimately I know that with that skill, I'm at peace. So now I'm totally focused on him. So, Larry, I know that this is a very difficult time for you. I understand that this separation is not your choice and that it's difficult and you just deserve as much compassion and consideration as I could possibly offer. And he would respond, probably angry, probably sad, something like that, right? And I would continue with empathy. Yes, I can really hear that you feel hopeful that there's some way that we can work it out and remain a family. That you're really hopeful that there's some way that I would be able to see my way clear to spending time with you and with the boys and with the dogs, and that we'd still have that environment for the children and for everybody, right? And he says whatever he says, he's starting to calm down because he understands that I am hearing him and I'm understanding him and I'm getting what his needs are. It's not about me. It's about me and him and the children and the dogs. That's already creating peace. And he's going to comment, he's going to say whatever he says. And I will continue to empathize with him until he has been heard and he's calm. And the more that I do this, the shorter these conversations will be. The first time you try it, you might have a 20-minute conversation or longer. The second, third, fourth, fifth time, even in a divorce, even in the middle of a divorce mediation, if you can do this, it goes quickly. And you'll see this in the role play. You'll see how quickly people calm down when they feel heard and their feelings are validated. Then I go into self-expression. You know, my thoughts, Larry, are that obviously we're sharing our time with everybody. We're sharing time with the children and with the dogs. And I know that we have a couple of ways of doing it. I understand that sometimes it makes sense to just be more organic and more relaxed. What works for you, what works for me, what works for them. And then for some couples, it's better if we create a structure. You know, this week is mine and that week is yours, and then balance it back and be perfectly clear with each other that we will cooperate and we will compromise. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about it, Larry. And Larry lets me know. Then I'm going to make a suggestion for this very complicated solution. So here's where we're using the full 6-part conversation. So now I'm going to identify. Okay, so from what I'm hearing, Larry, it sounds as if it works for you to have the first and the third week. You want me to have the second and the fourth week, and then we'll alternate in months that have a 5th week. Does that explain what you've described? And he says, yes. So great, I don't have to do any clarification. I heard him, I don't have a problem with it. I'm perfectly happy to start this way. I'm not saying this is my agreement for the rest of my life or until my children are 18, but I'm saying for now, fine. So I would say to him, moving towards solution, you know, I think this is a fantastic way to start. It seems very clear. It's not going to give us too many complications. We know where we are. The children will know where they're going and what they're doing. It will be easy for the pets. And I think it's a great plan. So why don't we start this way? And then if you or I or the children have any kind of a complication, we'll just agree that we're going to talk about it further. So how does that work for you? And in this simple role play example, let's say that Larry says, that's perfect. Okay, great. Now, what worked? So what worked in this scenario is that I have been able to stay focused on his needs getting met and my needs getting met. Not like I'm selling him a bill of goods, and certainly not like I'm capitulating and giving in either. The key to the 6-part conversation is you're not coercing, which means you're not forcing anybody. You're not capitulating. You're not giving in. You're generating cooperation. When you generate cooperation, you are a peaceful and powerful person, and that is the secret to life, isn't it? If you can be peaceful and powerful, you're going to have relationships that are going to be satisfying. You're going to be living in peace and joy and love and bliss, and all the things that are your human birthright are going to be yours. You're going to have the opportunity to have the life you dreamed of. You're going to have everything you wanted. It's going to be peaceful. It's going to be joyous. It's going to be fun. You can't have fun if you're arguing with people. And you can't have fun if people are arguing with you. Now, I don't want you to feel worried that you're not going to be able to argue once you learn this. Of course you can. If you've decided you don't want anything to do with somebody ever again for as long as you live, knowing full well that you cannot change that, once you go down the path of anger and frustration and fury and litigation, it's very hard to hit the comeback trail. So if you want to have a fight with somebody, by all means, of course you can, but understand what that means is you're done with them. It's not going to be a great intro for make-up sex, because the truth is you pay a price for that. It's not going to be an intro to get a better deal in a negotiation, because honestly, if you have a tantrum, you pay for that. I've seen too many people who were enormously successful, made fortunes in their lifetime, only to die either penniless or with almost nothing left. Why? I can tell you, in every single case, they had a habit of burning their bridges and fighting with people. So let's look at the solution page one more time so you understand that what a solution is one that works for both of us. In a solution, it's about you and me. Or if it's you and a group, or if it's a mediation and it's a divorce scenario, it's you and your partner and all the family members. It has to work for the pets, it has to work for the children, it has to work for you, it has to work for your partner. If there are grandparents involved, you want it to work for them too. And that's the real key. Any scenario you have where there are people involved, you can create a solution that is a true solution, that is a long-term solution when you learn and master the 6-part conversation.